Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you very much for watching or listening today. Liam Hartree here with another episode of Presenting Champions. Today, joined by a very special guest. I'm truly honored and privileged to have this man on the show. Today's guest, legendary former professional boxer Jesse James Leija, who, as many fans will know, accumulated an incredible 17-year career, 57 professional fights, former WBC world champion, and was, of course, in the ring with the best of the best. Many people remember him for the four fights with Azuma Nelson, but there's so many other names in there, including Costa Zoo, Gatti, we talked about Gatti, obviously Jeff Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley, Hector Camacho Jr., Ivan Robinson, Mickey Ward. I mean, there's so many guys. Jesse fought the absolute best of the best, never shied away from anybody, and had a very exciting career. So today we're going to be talking about his life and career, not only boxing but post-boxing as well, including the work he's doing today with boxing fitness centers, promotion, and quite a few other things as well. But champ, that's enough of me talking about you in third person. Hopefully I haven't missed anything there. But thank you for coming on the show, and it's great to have you with us today. Thank you.
Well, actually, thank you so much for that introduction. But probably one of the most important records that I have, well, not records, but the most important thing that I've done is I've been married 34 years with my wife, and we have been together for 44 years now. And I'm 57 years old, so we've been together since we were 12 years old, and that's probably the proudest thing that I can say I've done in my career, in my life. And boxing is the secondary part.
Well, that is amazing. That is absolutely extraordinary. Congratulations on so many happy years together. I think that's a wonderful thing to share. Absolutely. Well, we'll get into some of those things more in a moment because I do obviously want to talk about your life in the present day, and I'm actually going to start there and sort of work backwards. Obviously, you're running boxing fitness centers. You're involved in you have been involved in promotion as well. Can you share with us a little bit specifically about the fitness centers and what type of work you do there, what type of people you teach, and how some of that works? I think I know you've spoken about this a bit, but I think a lot of people around the world would love to know about that.
Well, okay. So the way it started, when I retired from boxing, which is in 2005, um, one of the things that I thought I was going to do was open a fitness center, and I mean, just to see if it worked. And we didn't know how it was going to work in San Antonio. I was going to cater mainly to white collar individuals, and so when I retired, I said, well, let's go into a little gym. We rented out a little space to see if it would work. It took off like crazy. So about 9 or 10 months later, I opened up another gym in a bigger building, and I was there for 17 years. And then COVID hit, and it slowed us down a little bit, but not too much. And then I said, you know what? I need a bigger space so people can really feel comfortable not getting COVID. Um, so I doubled down with my sons and I, and we got a 7,000 square foot building with 2 stories. It's huge. And we said, well, let's go for it. And I think people that will be less, more inclined to come in and work out with more space and with a big fans, so we did it, and it's taken off so much. So we've been there now a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And it's amazing that my sons have really made it grow even more so with all their with their postings on Instagram and so all the social media part, and that helps. I'm old school. I don't do so much of that, but my sons are doing it and they keep up with it. And now our gym is thriving. So we train businessmen, businesswomen, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, young kids. We train professionals. We train amateur boxers. We train the San Antonio Spurs for the last 18 years. Um, we train everybody, and it's fitness, it's mental health, it's everything included, and we're having a great time doing it. And we've had two, like I said before, I may have missed this, is we had 3 gyms going on at one time, and we closed them all to put everybody into that one big building that we had. It didn't make sense to pay rent out all these different spaces when we had one big gym, center of San Antonio.
Amazing. Well, it's amazing work you're doing, giving back to so many people. I've got lot of respect for that. The holistic approach as well that you mentioned is fantastic. Now, as soon as we started this with talking about how long you've been married and you've mentioned your son's helping you out there, I think that something we should talk about here is how you balance family life and such a successful career for so long. Now, this is not to probe into your personal life because that's none of my business, but I do actually think that as soon as you mentioned that's your greatest achievement, how have you always balanced achievement to such a high level, obviously in boxing, post boxing, and everything that you're doing with maintaining a happy, healthy, close family life? I wouldn't ordinarily ask that, but I think it's something obviously you've done amazingly well. So if you don't mind me asking, could we go into that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't. It was easy the whole time. When you're in the limelight and when you're in on TV all the time and you're having these big fights, you get trouble coming at you at times. Um, but I have to. I realize that I'm a family man. My wife and I have been together since we were 12 years old, and so that's the most important thing to me was to honor what we had and what we have. And it's easy. You just got to do it's doing the right thing, and sometimes that's hard for people, and sometimes it's easy for people. It was easy for me to do the right thing, and she's the best part of my life. She's the best thing that ever happened, and so it was easy. I'm not saying that it's always been easy, but there's been difficult times that things that people approach you with and whatever. But sometimes you be a fighter, you fight through it, and I've always said when the water recedes, it's always going to rise as well. Whenever there's a low, there's going to be an up. When something bad happens, I'm always going to look for the good part. Something good's always going to happen, and so you got to be positive and stay positive, stay committed. Um, you know, for some people it's hard, for some people it's easy.
Yeah, it's just amazing, and it's something that I think is much needed in this day and age as well. So I hope you don't mind me asking that. It's a valuable lesson because as well as getting into fights and things which we'll get into shortly, I try and share lessons from the great champions with people who are coming up. If you get what I mean, the things that you've learned along the way, getting to the level that you've gotten to. Obviously, you're still striving. So that's something that will come up through this talk a little bit.
Yeah,
Following that with another question about a broader topic like that. Obviously, advice for um, young fighters is something I like to always get into these interviews, and we'll go back and we'll look at some actual fights now. But before we do, obviously, having achieved everything you've achieved in boxing, and obviously with what you're doing now with the fitness centers, you're in a prime position to pass on knowledge, wisdom, things of that nature. And obviously, when I put this out, it'll go all over the world. So some of your knowledge can filter down a little bit to
yeah.
people you might not meet otherwise. So what would be some key ingredients that you would give to aspiring young athletes, boxers, coming through, maybe they're at the amateur stages or earlier? So I know it's a big question because there's probably more than a few things, but what would you say are a few essential ingredients that you'd share with people in terms of advice to succeed?
Well, there's something I've learned long time ago when I was young, when I was a young kid. I mean, I didn't start boxing until I was 18, 19 years old is when I started boxing. It was against my dad and my mom's wishes to box. My dad was a former professional fighter. He was the first San Antonian to ever make it to the National Golden Gloves finals. Um, so my dad was a fighter, a very good fighter. Um, but he didn't want his sons doing it because it's so rough and the punishment you take and things like that. So I didn't start fighting until I was 19 years old. But before that, I worked early on. I had a paper route. I started working and flipping burgers at the age of 14, 15 years old. I was working at a lumber company, um, working at a frag. I always worked. But something that I learned along the way of when I started boxing is um, it people would always tell me, man, you're lucky. You're lucky you've got to fight when I was young, you're in the Olympic trials and you fight all these fights everywhere and you're doing well. You're lucky. And I would always tell them, you are right. I am lucky. because the harder I work, the luckier I get. And that's all it is working hard and working harder than the guy next to you, working harder than your opponent, working harder than anyone else. That's what I did. And that's my trick. That's my trick. That's the secret is working hard.
Yeah, well, it's great advice. I mean, it is fantastic advice coming from you, and I know it really is, and I know people, a lot of people will have heard
And,
that, but I
and
don't.
let me interrupt you too. Let me interrupt you real quick, and I'm sorry, but let me
No,
interrupt you because um, I wasn't the tallest fighter. I'm 5'5". I wasn't the strongest guy. I only had what 19 knockouts in 57 fights. Um, I didn't, I didn't have I wasn't the fastest hands or anything like that. But I just worked hard at everything I could to not to get hit so much, to be able to hit them more than they hit me. The technique that I learned, that I was trained to do for my dad. Um, I just really, and like I said, I was only an amateur for 2 years. Then I turned pro. Um, but I was in the gym all the time. I was training all the time. When on a Sunday when the door was locked, I asked for the key so I could go in and train on my own. I did this for years. If I fought on a Friday or Saturday, I was back in the gym on Monday or Tuesday. If I had a 10 or 12 round fight, I would take 5 days off or 6 days off back in the gym because I had to make up for time because I knew that I would only had 19, I only had 2 years as an amateur. I knew I had to make up. So I just worked hard and ran hard and did everything I was supposed to do. I probably overdid it, but I needed to just to be able to compete with the best.
absolutely, it's a fantastic
And,
lesson.
and so if there is anyone out there who says, well, if you work hard at what you're doing, and there's a thing as working smart and hard or just working hard, but I worked smart and hard. Sometimes just worked hard because I didn't know any better. But as I learned, I had more years in boxing. I learned that there was a smarter way of doing things, and maybe that's what helps me when I train clients because they can learn right away, right off the bat, the right way instead of making mistakes. But it's okay. I went through all those mistakes, so my sons didn't have to. So my clients don't have to. They learn it right away. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. It's a powerful lesson, and it's something obviously people can apply to any venture in life as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be boxing. Just to put that in there,
Yeah.
this can apply to anything that you want to achieve. Which is my reason for asking you. I mean, I hope to inspire people with this talk, as well as have a good time talking about boxing. So it's twofold. Obviously, another thing to touch on here is the sort of the last thing of the present day before we go back into the fights. You've also been involved in the promotional aspect of boxing as well, I believe. Share with us a little bit about some of your experiences with that. I don't have a really specific question about this, but just how you feel promoting, giving fighters those opportunities in a different way. Obviously, you're giving them opportunities in your gym and regular people as well, anyone who wants the discipline, but also with the promotional side. Share with us some of your memories and experiences, what you enjoy most about that, if that's all right, and that type of thing, please.
I had a client named Mike Batal when I first started my first gym that we started, the small one that we're trying out. A client came up to me and it was Mike Batal. We became great friends, and I trained him 4 or 5 days a week for years and years and years. This was in 2005, and he always loved boxing. And one time he said, "Hey, we should maybe try promoting boxing." I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, that's the hardest thing you can do." Um, it's just so dirty, whatever. I just told him that's a tough one, but we tried it, and he's a businessman. I know the fight game. Um, so we got it together and we started our promotion fight. We were partners with Oscar De La Hoya, partners with Don King, partners with Bob Arum, partners with what's I can't think of the name right now. Anyhow, Al Heyman. We did all these fights for everyone. When we had in San Antonio, I forgot how many fights we've done. The Canelo fight twice in Texas. Um, we've done Adrian Broner against Maidana. We did all these. We were with Oscar or wherever, right? But we ran the whole show. We did everything in San Antonio. And here's a story. When we were with Oscar, And he said, "Hey guys, you all guys want to promote a fight?" I said, "Yes, I should give us a fight. We're gonna do promotion." And he just said, "Okay, um, try uh, Canelo, Canelo versus Austin Trout. I want you guys to try it out." He gave us a 5 week notice. We put 42,000 people in the arena in 5 weeks. And because we hustled, like I said, Mike Battah is a great businessman. So we had telemarketers everywhere calling everyone that we can think of, and we had a list of 60,000 people, and we just made phone calls. We paid girls to work 8 hours, 10 hours a day, making it calling everyone, and we had 41,000 people in 5 weeks time, and so they loved this. It was great here in San Antonio. We also did the fight when Canelo fought Kirkland in Houston. That was our fight as well. Um, we've done, when Omar Figueroa fought the gentleman from Japan. We did that fight. We had so many fights, and there were almost like 4 or 5 fights of the year candidates that we had here in San Antonio because Mike Battah and I's hard work. Obviously, we were working with Oscar or Al Heyman or whoever, but we did the work here in town.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember reading that in Ring magazine about the 42,000 people 5 weeks, and it's an exceptional achievement, really, especially given what you had to work with. But great opportunities for fighters, great for your local area, and fantastic.
At,
So, looking
and
back at,
at at the time, Canelo was not who he was. That was his first big fight. He was on his way up, but no one really knew. I mean, he wasn't a household name at the time. I mean, he's just a great fighter, but we loved it. We love him as well. But we worked hard. We had people going door to door. We had people making phone calls. We had, we did everything we could to make that thing happen, and we were successful at it.
yeah, I love it. It's amazing. And the fact that you're challenging yourself in so many different ventures in your post boxing life as well is just an amazing. I've got so much respect for that. Like I said, giving people the opportunities and everything to do with that is brilliant. Looking back at your career, obviously, big questions seem to be the theme of the start of this talk. So we'll roll with that. When you look back at your boxing career now, what would you say is your proudest moment, and why is it your proudest moment? Please, I love asking this question because it's usually not the answer you expect. So, in your own words.
Well, I mean, it's really a tough one to answer, but I have the answer for it. But I'm going to tell you real quickly: is I had 57 fights. I fought the best fighters in the world. Fought Zuma Nelson 42 rounds. I fought in San Antonio with 61,000 people in the arena. I've accomplished quite a bit for myself because I could only compete with myself. But one of the proudest moments is I have two moments I'm gonna tell you about. Um, One was obviously when I won the world title in Las Vegas and back in the Zuma fight. Um, One of the reasons is because Azuma Nelson is famous or notorious for knocking out guys in the rematch, and this was the rematch. And he said he was gonna knock me out or he would retire. Um, I went ahead and dropped him. I'm the second guy to drop Azuma Nelson at that time since Salvador Sanchez, and I'm not even a power puncher, but I just landed the right punch, um, and I won that fight. So I was proud of that moment, and I was always proud of the time when they said from San Antonio, Texas. That just brought me chills when I was in the ring, and I was like, I get to, I get to fight for the city of San Antonio and put them on the map, and or whatever it could, it was just I was so proud of that. The second proudest moment that I had in my history in my boxing career was when I'm in Madison Square Garden getting ready to fight Oscar De La Hoya. So I get into the ring. I was the first one. Oscar came in after me. And I'm looking around the ring. Of course, I'm nervous. I've been training so hard for this fight. I've sparred so many rounds. I was in training camp for 8 weeks by myself with my trainers away from San Antonio. But I get inside the ring and I walk around and I'm jumping around, getting warmed up, and I look at all these famous movie stars sitting ringside, and I'm like, wow. If these people only knew what it took for me to get to this point right here, to get inside the Master Garden, to fight against Oscar De La Hoya. If Gianni knew what it took to get to this point, fighting amateur fights, I only had 35 amateur fights in 2 years. I started fighting everybody. I don't care who it was. I was, if you want to fight him, that's and that's just to be where I'm at, and like, and to fight, to all the naysayers that say I would never make it in boxing because I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't tall enough, I didn't hit hard enough, all these things. And I'm in the ring and I said, man, I've already made it. I've already accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Now I got to do is just fight Oscar De La Hoya, which is another difficult task in itself. And he stops me in 3 rounds. But I already won before the fight. I already won. In my mind, I've already won. I succeeded in what I'm doing. I'm going to continue fighting. Nobody wanted to fight Oscar at that time. I want to say, I'll fight him. I don't care. I went up in weight and fought him. I came back down in weight. But it's to dare to be great. I dared to be great. And I didn't win the fight, but I was going to go ahead and try to be great. After that, we had other fights. And I came back and went back to the top again. But then I lost to great fighters after that. But that was one of the problems where I said, James, you've worked so hard to be where you're at right now. People only knew what it took to get to that point. In Madison Square Garden, fighting the great Oscar De La Hoya with all these famous movie stars watching. It was just a great feeling. So, and the thing is, you don't always have to win to feel good about yourself. I felt great about myself, and I didn't have to win.
Amazing. That's incredible. I mean, the story behind it, the story how you got there, but also the things you were feeling that no one else would have seen, really, or maybe your family would have seen, but no, not most people wouldn't know. What you were feeling in that moment. So that's an incredible insight into, well, a great achievement. Obviously, that you shared with him. I mean, everyone knows about what you shared with Azuma Nelson and everything. But are you guys close now? I mean, do you sort of see each other much, speak to each other much, because you shared such a special connection with 42 rounds? I mean, there's not a lot of stories. I mean, well, there are some great trilogies and great fights like that out there, but there's not lots and lots. So it's quite unique what you two shared, pushing each other to the absolute limits. After all that was said and done, what was your relationship like after the 4 fights with him?
Well, now it's like we don't see each other. Obviously, he's in Africa and I'm here, and we don't see. But we see each other at function. We're like brothers. We hug, we talk, we laugh, we take pictures, and we're like brothers. It's a brotherhood, and so I have so much respect for Azuma, and I think he has the same for me. I love his family. He loves my family. He talks to my kids and my wife, and we had 42 rounds of tough. Every single round was tough with Azuma. He hit hard. He was trying to knock me out. He had that look in his eyes that he was going to try to come after me and kill me. But after the fight, we had so much respect for each other. I mean, when you go to war with a guy that long, you have nothing but respect for him and everything he stands for. I wish I could see him more, but I don't see him more. I don't see him enough. Maybe at the WC convention. I'm hopefully going to the one in Acapulco. I'm sorry, Acapulco, and I hope he's there because I haven't seen him in about 4 or 5 years. But it's just we don't have to say much. We just hang around together. We talk a little bit, but just being around him feels so good. Um, um, that's a guy that I fought that most people know me by is fighting Azuma Nelson 4 times. But I had, one thing I do, I have the 2 wins against him and 1 draw, and he has 1, win that he stopped me in our 3rd fight. Oh, real quick story about Azuma Nelson, and this fans may love this. Okay, so when I fought him in our the 3rd fight when I fought him, I'm inside the ring. He's a champion because I had lost my title. He beat Gabe Burla. He got the title back. Anyhow, he's coming into the ring. I'm inside the ring, warmed up, right? This is our 3rd fight in Vegas. He's coming in, and I feel great. I feel great the whole camp, everything. I feel like, okay, I'm going to beat him again. This is my other time to beat him. He's coming in. I look at my dad, and I said, something's wrong. Something came over me. Like my body just like flushed out. Like if someone hit me so hard. I looked at my dad and said, something's not right. something's not right. And Azuma Nelson was walking into the ring with, he had all these people playing the drums and the trampoline and all this thing. And I just felt something come over me, like something is wrong. I told my dad, something's not right. Anyhow, Azuma Nelson comes in. The first round, he hits a punch. He drops me. They're like, somebody shot me. They're like, I would never get up. I got up. For the next 6 rounds, I'm out on my feet. I have no idea what's happening, but I'm making a comeback. But I got cut real bad. And but I was out on my feet. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just reacting. It was a decent fight, but he beat me. They stopped the fight on the cut, but I wasn't getting knocked out of it. They didn't stop it. After that fight, I felt that was weird. Okay. Years later, Azuma Nelson writes a book, and he writes a book about the time I beat him in Vegas on our second fight. He says he thinks that I put a hex on him or did a Mexican voodoo trick on him, and that's why I beat him. And I'm thinking, you did the same thing to me in our third fight. Because remember, I felt something weird, and we laughed about it so hard because he wrote exactly what I was thinking, but he wrote it on our second fight, not the third fight.
That's wild, man. That is crazy. But
Yeah.
you know, I mean, these things. There's a lot more than what we understand that goes on in this world. I'll say that much.
Oh,
And
yeah.
um, I am a spiritual person, so I get where you're coming from. But
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. Moving on to a couple of other fights to give a mention. Obviously, we can't really talk about them all, but just a few things that fans will love. Obviously, the concept of toughest fights is a very fan-friendly question that comes up in
Yeah.
everything. But with you, it's more interesting because obviously you have so many tough fights. I mean, you fought everybody. So this is why I was thinking, well, I'll ask you this because again, it might not be what you expect. Obviously, tough can be in different ways. I mean, it can be more of a technical thing. It can be more of a power thing. It's relative to the person. But out of so many great people that you shared a ring with, who stands out when you look back as being the most difficult fight to get through, the toughest fight, basically?
Well, see, and that's a tough question, kind of, because I fought like Oscar, tough fight, right? But that wasn't a fight. It was, he stopped me in 3 rounds. So, it really wasn't as tough a fight as, you would. Shane Mosley, I went 9 rounds with. That was a tough fight. I went 9 rounds with Shane Mosley. I only had a 17-day notice to fight. I'm sorry, a 21-day notice to fight Shane Mosley, right? Like I said, I'm going to challenge myself to be the best. I dare to be great. So they gave me that opportunity to fight him in 21-day notice. I had to drop 17 pounds in 21 days. And I'm a small guy, right? I'm 5'5". And the fight was great. If you ever watched that fight, he said I gave him one of the toughest fights at 135. He said that in an interview on a magazine that I gave him one of the toughest fights at 135. Anyhow, that was a tough fight because he was so fast. He didn't hit me hard, but he was just fast and he landed all these punches, body shots. I was weak for making weight, but that was a tough fight. But I also had fights with guys I was fighting 4-rounders with or 6-round fights. There was a guy named Chilo Guzman who wasn't really a very good fighter, but he was just hitting me with the open part of his palm, hitting me everywhere. And it just like I cut easily. So I had cuts in both eyes. I had blood in my eyes. There's a 4-round fight, maybe a 6-round, I can't remember. But I had blood in my eyes. I had Vaseline in my eyes. I can't see. It's the 3rd round, I think. Maybe the 4th round, I'm in the ropes and he's just punching away like crazy. And I'm hurt. And I'm thinking, I'm going to take it. Here's something people don't understand about fighters, but I'm getting hurt so much. I'm getting hit. I can't see the guy. I have acid in my eyes. And I say to myself, I'm going to take a knee and just say, I'm done. I can't fight. I can't see. And I thought about this and I'm like looking for a spot to take a knee. And he's hit me. And I just threw a hook as hard as I could, hit him, knock him out. And that was a fight. And I continued to stay undefeated. But I was seconds away from actually taking a knee and calling it a career. Or not a career, but calling it a night. Um, and that happened the same thing, just to go fast forward, that happened the same thing when I fought Francisco Bojado in my second to my last fight. I had a separated rib that I fought for a couple of years with. He keeps hitting me on that rib and I'm just dying. I can't breathe. And I'm saying one more time, he hits me in that rib and I'm taking a knee. And then one more time, he hits me again. I said, okay, one more time. Next time, oh, one more time. By the time I knew I'm the fifth round or sixth round, I said, I'm winning this fight. There's no way he's going to hit. And they never hit me again, but I just dominated him and won the fight. That got me the Arturo Gatti fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you said about the Gatti fight as well that you were sort of a bit you weren't happy with the fact it came later than it should have. I read somewhere I think
Yeah.
it might have been Ring Magazine again to be honest or somewhere like that that
Mhm.
you were saying that you wished that fight could have come a bit earlier and the weights and everything. So is that the case? Is that accurate that you weren't happy with the
But
time
yeah,
that you know?
yeah. When I was younger, at 135 or 130 or 135, we had, maybe there was talks and or discussion trying to make something happen with the Gotti camp or trying to see if that fight would ever materialize. It never did. Um, but it materialized when I was 38 years old. I really at the end of my career, towards the end, injury. That every fighter goes through it. We have injuries, and it's just a fight I wish I would have had when we talked about at 130 or 135 when I was more, a little bit younger and at more of my weight. Um, but it happened, and it just circumstances happen. When you're at that age, I was 38 years old. I had all my battle wounds already, separated ribs, bad elbows, whatever. We all have certain things that we go in. I don't think there's a fighter really that goes into a fight 100% with no injuries. Because we're sparring so much in the ring and training. We're gonna get injured here and there. We're gonna throw an elbow out. We're gonna have a hurt rib, broken nose, busted lip, sore jaw. There's just always something going on. But at the end of my career at 38, I was, I was I like to say the story this way, and then it may sound bad, but you know how sometimes when you have to put your pet down, if you ever had to put your pet down, and on the day of or the day before, he always looks like he's very alive, like wow, he looks pretty good. Maybe I don't have to do it, but you do have to do it. That was me in uh, the fight before Gotti. Um, I fought for Francisco Bojado, who's one of the best up and coming fighters at his time. He was supposed to be the next Oscar de la Hoya, and I fought him right before the Gotti fight, and I did great. I won the 10-round tough fight. He dropped me in the second round. He kept hitting me in the ribs during the fight, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it turns out I won the fight, and that got me the Gotti fight. But by the time the Gotti fight came, my body just said, "Oh, you're done. You're done. You had your one last good fight."
Yeah. Still, it's an amazing achievement, obviously, being in the ring with him. But yeah, I just remember
Oh yeah,
reading it.
yeah.
There were circumstances that weren't ideal with that one, but that's life. Talking about injuries and stuff like that, I mean, obviously, to give people a balanced view of all this, you have achieved so much, you reached these dizzy heights, you've accomplished so much. These days, do you have many, if you don't mind me asking, like health problems or anything from boxing? Because you seem really well
No,
and
no. I
fit.
I mean, I still have my bad elbow. It's still bad. That's from years and years of jabbing the whole time or getting hit. You get hit this way. And so my son and I have both had the same thing. My son had surgery here. I didn't need it because it happened towards the end of my career. When my son first started boxing, he had that injury. And so what it is this muscle between our tricep and elbow is supposed to be longer. Ours are shorter. So when it's shorter, you get hit. It just puts a hard stress on that elbow joint, and you can't move your arm for at least 2 or 3 minutes, and it's the worst pain. Um, that happened to me towards the end of my career, so I would have it injected right before the fight, and that would help with the pain. But other than that, I don't have my rib that was separated is healed because I don't get hit anymore, so it's healed. Um, I think we all have a little bit of brain damage here and there. I'm not sure, but I think most boxers. I mean, you're in boxing, you're gonna get hit every day in the head or whatever when you train or when you spar or when you get into fights. But I think I've been pretty lucky so far. Um, I think I've been very lucky because I've seen other fighters who have had less fights than I've had and are far worse, and it's tough. It's a very tough sport. It's a brutal sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I think it's important, and but I think some people would shy away from from asking that. But yeah, I mean, you obviously you've seen in
No,
great health, and it's nice to see. It's very nice to see that you're doing so well. I really mean that. Just it's not even a question, but just doing so well with family and business and everything. It's really nice. You touched on
and
something.
I'll tell you real quick. I'll tell you real quick. I always tell young kids, and I think what's helped me, maybe, and here's my take on it. I think what's helped me be able to speak somewhat well, and being okay to get by all the time, is I didn't start fighting until I was 19 years old. I had one fight when I was 16, but it was real quick, one fight, and I didn't fight again until I was 19 years old. I think the fact that I didn't get hit in the head from the time I'm 7, 8, 9, 10, all through those years really helped me, and that I was able to have a long career. But I think if I had a long amateur career, I think I would have had a very short pro career. Um, and I think that's what's helped. I think that's what helped me. Now, really, like I said earlier, I really had to work hard because I had to play catch up because I didn't have all those amateur fights. But I still made it to Olympic trials in 1988. I made it to Olympic trials, and I lost to the guy that made it to the Olympics. But anyhow, I think that's really helped me in my pro career. Is I didn't have so many amateur fights, and I think it's helped me in my career after boxing. Is that I'm able to speak somewhat well, and I'm able to get by and do things and do business and promote, have my gyms, have all this. I'm able to do that because I didn't take a beating when I was younger. That's my take on it.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of these studies coming out now showing that
Mm-hmm.
potentially showing that the long amateur careers and training certain ways from a young age and all that can be more damaging. I
Yeah.
read somewhere else that Mickey Ward, obviously who you fought, I think he's spoken about this about I'm not sure what age it was, but he was talking about like hard sparring or doing more aggressive stuff from quite a young age, and he thinks that might be to do with some of the problems he now has. I mean, I'm not sure if it's true, but I totally get where you're coming from with that. You also mentioned about your son boxing. Now you have to bring me up to speed on this a little bit, but as I understand it, is one of your children boxes, or is it more than one? I'd just like to get your thoughts on this because you said that obviously your father didn't want you to box and sort of tried to talk you out of it. When the time came for your children to want to box and say, I want to give this a try, what was the situation? I mean, were you concerned about them? Were you happy for it? You get where I'm coming from with this one.
Oh yeah. No, I was happy for it, and then didn't want it for him because I mean the reason I fought is so they wouldn't have to, so they can go to college. I paid for, they have great. My son's a biology, not biology. I'm sorry. He's uh, I'm trying to think of which major he has. Psychology major. My oldest son, James, and he's the one that started boxing. He started the same age I did at 19. He won the first time he got into the Golden Gloves. He wins the Golden Gloves, the tournament. He's a very good fighter, but when he turned pro, he was training so hard to do all these fights, and all these fights were just falling through. He couldn't get a fight to save his life. He had like 3 or 4 fights to train for, and the fights wouldn't materialize. He was supposed to fight in the fight in Houston when Canelo fought Kirkland. He was supposed to be on the undercard. The fighter didn't make weight. The fighter came in 15 or 12 pounds overweight. You know, as a trainer, you have to be smart and say, that's too heavy. We can't fight this guy. That's how they get hurt. So he didn't fight. And that was just devastating. He said, Dad, this is it's just too much. I'd rather just, you know, and thankfully so, because it just wasn't the right time for him. It just wasn't happening for him. And he was 3-0 as a pro, but he had 4 or 5 fights fall through. That's enough to just say, man, I'm tired of this. It's not gonna work, or it's not beneficial, or whatever it was. But now he does well. He's married. He has his wife's a doctor, physical therapist. We have a granddaughter who's 4 years old. My son's one of my partners at my gym. So we do well, and he's great. Even my younger son, I have my first son's James, my younger son's Dean, so it's James Dean. He's 27 years old, and he's probably the best one of the both of us. So myself, and my son James. Dean's a natural. He's tall. 5'11", 165 pounds. He could go lefty, righty. He hits left. He'll spar with pros and do well with pros. He's so good, but he doesn't care to fight. But he's so good. It's scary. And one day I'm gonna send you a video, and you're gonna be, oh my God, this guy's not a pro already. He's so good. He would fight right now and win. I without a doubt would win a title so fast. But he's not. He don't care to do it. He has a business. He's business partners with us. They're just not in the state to do it. And I'm glad. But he is so good. Both my boys are. They're both. My son James is great. My son James had just an outstanding jab, kind of like a Larry Holmes type of jab, always in your face. And he loved. He always said this about boxing. Why do guys have to get hit? All you gotta do is the name of the game is to box. It's not slugging. It's called boxing. Why do guys have to slug? I said, well, because they do it for the fans, and the fans don't care if they get beat up or not. And so, and my son Dean's more over everything. He could slug, he could box, he could do it all.
Amazing, yeah, incredible. Well, it's good to get your thoughts on that, and it sounds like they're both doing great, which is fantastic. But yeah, I get where you're coming from with having mixed feelings. I've seen that a lot of times in the game. Well, good luck to both of them with their ventures and everything they're doing. It's good. Moving into the last couple of things now, because obviously for people's attention spans, we'll wrap up shortly because of how long we've been.
Yes, sir.
We've been talking, but obviously we've talked a bit about the past and everything. The only other thing I wanted to, well, the last two things really I wanted to get your thoughts on. One more looking back, which is one of the things I think is overlooked with the fight game is the mental side of it. I mean, you've spoken a bit about your training and sparring. I know we haven't gone into that in depth, but we've touched on it. But I've seen in the game you have to have a strong mind as well. So I'd just be curious to get your thoughts on during your career, like on the build up to a big fight, as it's getting closer and things like that. How you stay in a positive sort of mindset, and how you sort of develop the mental toughness to face those challenges over and over again, and that type of thing. If you get what I mean, because obviously it's a physical sport, and that's essential. But people don't ask about the mental side. So I thought maybe to make this a little bit different, you could share with us your memories of basically what you were thinking about on the build up to a big fight, like if you visualized or if you did anything, or what your process was, basically.
So I'm gonna tell a story real quick, and hopefully I'm not too long. I don't know if I've been talking too much or not, and I'm sorry if I have been. So here's a story about how I tell people how it is getting ready for a fight. So you're at, I tell them, so you're at school, you're in middle school or in high school, and some guy comes up to you and says, I'm going to beat you up after school. And you just wait till after school, and you're in lunchtime, right? You got 3 hours. It's going to be after school. You're waiting. All you're thinking now is, this guy's going to come and beat me up at 3:30 at school. And that's all you think about for the next 3 hours. And about how, oh my God, this guy's going to come and I'm going to have to fight. Well, think about if you're a pro fighter. That's the same thing we think when you're 8 weeks out, 7 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 5, 4, 3, 2. You're 4 days out, 2 days out, 1 day out, and it just builds up. It builds up. It builds up. I'm gonna fight this guy. This guy's Oscar de la Hoya. This guy's Arturo Gatti. This guy's Azuma Nelson, and you're getting ready to fight him, and it just builds up so much. But something in your mind has to say, I'll be okay. I've trained so hard. So I did this. For every negative thought that comes into you, because it happens. What if I get hit? What if he knocks me out? What if he cuts me? What if he hits me to the body? What if he does it? All these things come into your mind. But for every negative thought that I would get, I would overcome it with 10 positive thoughts. No, this is not going to happen because I've done this. I've run 20 miles. I've dieted the right way. I'm not hurt myself to make weight. I've trained so hard on this fight. I've had the right sparring partners. All this, you overcome it with positive thoughts. For anything, for any negative thought you get, overcome it with 10 positive thoughts. And that's what I would do throughout my career. And then the fight time comes. You're in the dressing room. It's 2 hours before the fight, 1 hour before the fight, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5, 4. Come on, let's go out. They call you in, right, to go to the walk, to make the walk. And there's a story. My friend John Scully from New England, he has a quote saying, the walk to the ring will strip any man of any pride or dignity he thought he had. Because that's how tough it is walking to the ring.
Yeah. That is amazing. I mean, again, it's incredible because it's something that, first of all, it's useful to other fighters and people out there to, again, get your lessons from that. But at the same time, it's something for the fans that they don't see. And
Yeah,
obviously, they don't see what's going on and unless you're in camp and you're around it and everything. You don't experience that. So it's an amazing insight and, like I say, a
that,
valuable lesson.
that's
Um,
why I try to say if you're at school and maybe you're gonna get into a fight, you kind of know. Oh, I know how that feels. Like I'm gonna fight this guy after school. You kind of know that feeling, that those butterflies you get, that scaring thing that happens to us too. We get that, and we're going through that for weeks at a time, months at a time, and then it comes down to hours and minutes and seconds, and then time to walk into the ring. Then you have that lonely walk to the ring.
Amazing. Well, we've talked about some fantastic things today, and hopefully we've talked about some things that are a little different to your average interview as well. I mean, that's certainly something I aim for. The last thing to talk about is just your future plans, because obviously we've talked about everything you've achieved up until this point. Do you know what I mean? But you're obviously the type of person where you've still got a lot of drive and ambition to sort of challenge yourself and test yourself and keep going with different things and to contribute to other people, obviously. So, your plans going into the future, like what's driving you, what's lighting your fire? That's the last question, really.
Okay, so but before I get into that last question, I want to go back to the question you asked about our mental thinking that we do before the fights or during the fight. So, you know, here's something that the people, and I don't care if you're in sports or you're in business or you're in a marriage or you whatever you're in. So whenever you hear anyone talking about basketball or football, baseball, boxing, they always say that it's 80% mental, 20% physical, right? And then you start thinking, well, how many people practice mental? How do you practice mental? What do you do? They all say it's 80% mental. Well, okay, so what did you do for the mental part? And no one ever explains themselves why or how do you do it. So, being a positive person myself, or being a mentally tough person, or mentally fit. So what I did was, when it was 1989, my dad's best friend said, James, you're a good fighter, but I think this book is going to help you become a better fighter or a great fighter. I was only a year into my pro career. I took the book, I put it away. I never even looked at it. One day he asked me, have you looked at the book? No, I haven't. Then he asked me again. No, I haven't yet. And then one day I said, I better do it just so I could tell him I did. I started reading the book. I couldn't put it down. I finished it. It changed my life. It changed my life. And ever since then, all I've ever bought, if I walked into my back room, you'll see all these books. Every book's about mental toughness, positive thinking, upper hand, how to get the upper hand on physical fitness, or just everything about mentality. So I practice that mental toughness. I practice how to be a better fighter. I practice how to be a better person, how to be a better husband. I practice those things. It just didn't come to me. I actually had to study and work and do it. But when people say, oh, it's mental, 80% mental, well, tell me how you do it. Well, I don't know. I just said it. No, I actually did it. And it's about reading. It's like studying. How do you become better at math? How do you become better at science? How do you become better at English? Well, you study. Well, I studied how to become mentally tough. And so all these books, the first book that I read was The Power of Positive Thinking, that changed my life. And ever since then, I have books everywhere about how to be mentally tougher, mental toughness, all these things. And that's what helped me in my career and helped me in my life, helps me in my marriage, helps me with my kids, helps me in the community, helps me in everything I do, because I know it's going to be good because I'm going to put that work into it. And it didn't come by itself. I had to work at it.
I love that. I absolutely love that answer. I mean, it's something very special in terms of advice and in terms of lessons. But I'm the same, by the way. But if you could see this room, I got stuff
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
I totally relate to where you're coming from. Is something was encouraged by my family and everything. But
yeah.
it's a valuable lesson for anyone out there. just
And
separates.
plus, real quick too, me reading all those books, reading. I think it helped me with my vocabulary. It helped me with my mentor. It helped me read. Maybe I became a little smarter. I don't know. I was reading stuff. I was reading books. I was reading stuff, and it helps you read. It helps you in life. It just changed my life. And being positive. Well, what's the alternative? Be negative? No, be positive. You have one or two. You have the choice too.
Yeah. Powerful lesson there, and it's, I'll say to anyone listening to this, they should take note of that because it is something that separates, the great from the good, and it just separates the levels 110%. And I've seen that over and over in boxing, but again, it applies to life in
Yeah.
general. So powerful. Your future plans, and then we can wrap it up from there. I just like to get into what's lighting your fire and what's motivating you going forward, as your next steps, basically.
My future plans, I think just, being in the gym, training my clients, running the business, with my sons, helping raise my granddaughter, or just be a good grandfather, be a good husband, be a good person in society, helping my community. So one of the things that we have, and I think we touched about, we didn't talk about this earlier, is one of my foundations that I have with my attorney. His name is Michael Miller. In 2009, we started talking about the Miracle League. The Miracle League is a baseball team for special need kids here in San Antonio. We started it here in San Antonio in 2009. We finally got to open it up in 2012. Now we have about 200 special need kids that play baseball in a special field for them, and that that's another thing that's one of the most rewarding things in my life that I have done, is help the community, help these young kids to be able to play baseball like any kid should, or get in sports like any kid should. Some of these kids are mentally challenged, some of them are physically, some are both, but they get the chance to play baseball, and it's called the Miracle League of San Antonio. Um, and that's one of the proudest things. That's probably the biggest achievement I've ever done in my life, besides my married life and my kids. But something outside my family, that's one of the biggest things I've ever done.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I'm slightly lost for words with that because it's a beautiful thing, and it's
If
beautiful
you get a
work.
chance, look it up. The Miracle League of San Antonio, and that's our baseball team. We've been doing it since 2012, and it runs great. I have the longest running golf tournament here in San Antonio. I just had my golf tournament 27 years last week, and 100% of the money goes to the Miracle League. All my foundation that we've ever done is 100% of the money goes to the youth here in San Antonio.
I love that. I mean, I've got so much respect for that. When I was saying about you giving back in the gyms and everything, I mean, I had no idea, to be quite honest, that you were doing this as well. But it's exceptional work, and I definitely will look that up. And is there any way that people listening to this or whatever can support that or donate to it or
Oh yeah,
render?
I mean we have our link on. You can look it up on YouTube. Look up and they'll tell you how to get a hold of us. But it's the Miracle League of San Antonio. I'm partners. I'm the vice president. My attorney, my friend Michael Miller, is a president. It's a great story. There's a real quick story about him. Is when he's been my boxing attorney for years, and he was attorney for so many since me. He had so many fighters that wanted to be him, wanted to be uh, lawyered by him because he's so good at what he did. But anyhow, he and his wife were pregnant, and the doctors told his wife and himself that their baby was probably a Downs baby and that maybe he should abort it because it was a Downs baby. He said, "No, I'm gonna change doctors and I'm gonna keep my baby because it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that." The baby was born fine. The baby was born fine. She's 19 years old now, or 18. Um, but one day he's sitting at home watching the Real Sports on HBO, and the segment was about a father in Georgia somewhere that started the Miracle League. and he started it for his daughter who was special needs. And anyhow, it's a big franchise, not franchise, but now it's all over the country. And we were the first ones to do it here in Texas. But Mike said, he had said, my dog's barking. Mike Miller said, if my daughter was special needs, I would want this baseball league for her. And then he thought about it and said, no, she's not special needs, so I'm going to do it for her anyways. And that's how it started.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, that is just, the world needs more people doing that type of work. I mean, it's exceptional. It's I can see why, in a sense, that's one of your proudest things, because that is such a high level of everything that's good about humanity that you've aspired to there. Um, Thank you for sharing that, champ, because otherwise, I wouldn't have known, my listeners wouldn't have known about it. So I definitely, I will look it up, but I'll definitely put the call out to anyone watching or listening to this.
Appreciate that.
Look this up and find out more about it, because it's incredible work. That's really something. I'm slightly lost for words, but it's really something special. And
Thank you
I've
so
got so
much.
much respect for that, champ. It's amazing. Well, the last thing for me to do is just to say thank you for your time, really, because we've talked about some great stuff. No, you haven't talked too much. You shared some amazing stories, and I'm very grateful for you being such an open book, if you like, with this process and everything. It's been great fun to share this time with you, and I'm sure everyone will really enjoy listening to this. So, and they'll learn from it. That's the thing. I mean, as well as getting some sort of entertainment and everything, that's cool. But people can take life lessons from this and hopefully apply those in their own lives. And that's a big reason why I actually do these, and why I sort of track down the champions and everything. It's not just boxing; it's how people got to be great, and what other people can learn from that, if that makes sense. So we've definitely ticked that box and then some. So, like I say, the last thing for me to do is just say thank you for taking time out of your day to do this.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. It was great. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.